Family is the first Whedon written and directed episode of Buffy in Season 5, and it's a curious one. Whedon has said in interviews that he thought about his time as the showrunner on Buffy as putting himself through film school. And one thing I greatly appreciate is that didn't mean we ended up with 15 variations of giant snakes or rocket launchers. If anything, his episodes feel wildly experimental, from the comic romp of Doppelgangland to his functional and restrained direction in the Angel episode Untouched. And Family feels like yet another specific and unique entry in his diverse range of work, a bedtime story. In his first Buffy writing and directing credit this season, Whedon picks up right where he left off, with some of the dreamlike images from Restless. Watching this episode now, seeing Tara and Willow in bed loving each other while playing with their kitten feels natural and as it should be. But I think it's important to keep in mind that Whedon was always fighting with the network for every scrap of Tara and Willow that we got to have. Their on-screen relationship was somewhat unprecedented. It's the same evening that Dawn's actual nature was revealed to Buffy, and she shares the news with Giles. I love this exchange between the two of them as Buffy tells Giles, her father figure, that her dad has selfishly abandoned them. Lovely, intimate blocking with a beautiful halo lighting on them both. The two of them agree not to tell Dawn or the rest of the Scoobies the truth for now. The next day, the gang is helping Buffy move out of the dorms, since she has decided to be home more for both Dawn and Joyce. It's a wonderful, beautifully blocked scene that, as Sarah on the live tweet session pointed out, feels like a close family on a car ride, though Tara has a bit of an awkward moment.
That was funny. If you studied Tagler and Mythic Rites and are a complete dork.
Huh. And how come Xander didn't laugh?
Wow. Riley with the dunk. You know, the Riley scoreboard doesn't get a lot of points in the plus column, but I'm voting we throw one in for posterizing Xander. I also love how Xander takes it all in stride. At the hospital, a scary-looking thing is moving on Ben when Glory grabs the monster and pulls him away. I wonder if there's some kind of connection between Ben and Glory. Spike is fantasizing about fighting Buffy while he has sex with Harmony. If Spike conflating sex and violence wasn't readily apparent before, it should be now, as in his fantasy, Buffy uses her vagina to beat him up. As Buffy and Xander commiserate over the challenges of getting to know Tara and what to buy her for her birthday party, a strange man inserts himself into the conversation.
So, are you all witches, or... Hey, don't do a spell on me now.
The man is Tara's brother, and she does not look happy to see him. Or her father, for that matter. Amy Adams' appearance in this episode as Tara's cousin has to be up there with the Renferatu as one of the strangest cameos in the Buffyverse. According to IMDb, this supporting role came in her second year of acting. Mr. Maclay asks to see Tara for dinner that evening, and she uses a very pointed term for him.
Yes, sir.
Sir. Buffy is now showing signs of serious paranoia over Dawn's safety, and Riley notices.
It's more than that.
What do you mean?
You tell me.
But the decision she made with Giles adds to the pile of things that she and Riley aren't communicating about. Back at the dorms, Tara's dad has let himself into her bedroom.
I suppose you wanted me to see all these toys.
Nah, dude, she's just living her best life. It's not all about you. Daddy Von Narcissist reveals that they're there because something is going to happen to Tara on her 20th birthday.
You have evil inside of you, and it will come out.
This explains why, when Willow tried to do the locator spell to find Adam back in Season 4, Tara sabotaged it. She didn't want Willow to know her secret. With her birthday and demon change coming in the next day, Tara casts a spell to make demons invisible to the gang. Glory sends the demon she grabbed after Buffy. Riley stops by Willie's place for a drink, the site of his complete meltdown in Season 4, and gets hit on. Glory's demon has some mates the gang are now blind to, and they invade the magic box. Spike gets wind of Glory's plan for Buffy and goes to watch her die, or at least that's what he tries to convince himself of. Tara realizes what is happening, cancels the spell, and the gang neutralizes the threat. But in comes Daddy Dearest with plenty of ammo for his point of view.
The women in our family have demon in them.
Mr. Maclay tries to bully Tara into coming along with him, but Willow steps up to fight for her.
Do you want to leave?
It's not your decision, young lady.
I know that.
It's Tara's. God, I love that bit. It's something I've remembered from my very first run-through of the series. Go Willow. And once Tara expresses her choice, Buffy steps forward to back her.
We are her blood kin. Who the hell are you?
We're family.
Spike suspects something is fishy in the old man's story and realizes he's a living demon detector.
It's just a family legend, am I right? Just a bit of spin to keep the ladies in line. You're a piece of work. I like you.
Captain Gaslight tries to take one more stab at getting Tara to bend to his will.
Back.
Just go.
Amber's delivery of that line is an absolute stunner, somehow compassionate with a hint of pity, as if to say, it doesn't work anymore. Tara's party is a hit, and the episode ends with two witches dancing on the ceiling. Family is a joy. I have some quibbles and bits, of course, but overall it's kind of, forgive the term, magical how the episode feels light and fanciful while still grappling with some pretty heavy topics. Amber Benson gives a terrific performance in this one. There is a lot to dive into, but let's cover some odds and ends first. I mentioned the season is developing a theme around the idea of sanity, which continues in this one.
Families are always... they make you crazy.
And Buffy drops a big hint at what Glory's thematic relationship may be to the season.
She was kind of like Cordelia, actually.
At this point, we've gotten to see a cuddlier, more angel-rific side of Cordelia.
Don't be embarrassed. We're family.
But I mean, Buffy hasn't. It's not like they were ever that close, even when she was under the spell of Xander Harris. Buffy usually acknowledged Cordelia as someone she could potentially turn into. We've also been tracking signs of the Buffy-Riley emerging tailspin this season, but this episode makes it not only official, but something that has been going on for quite a while now. In the bar, where Riley once wondered desperately at right versus wrong, good versus evil, the bartender observes,
Let you come in here. Night after night.
night after night, and he has an unexpectedly polite chat with Sandy, Vamp Willow's victim from Doppelgangland. It seems, for Riley, that conversation that started in Goodbye, Iowa has never quite come to a satisfying conclusion. His decision to go off on his own to a place he shouldn't be also means that he isn't present when Buffy declares,
We're family.
If this was anything other than a Whedon episode, I might think that I was reading too much into the lyrics of the song playing on the jukebox at Willie's. The song is called Tears in Your Eyes by Yo La Tengo. You tell me summer's here and the time is wrong. You tell me winter's here and your days are getting long. Tears are in your eyes tonight. Although you don't believe me, you are strong. Darkness always turns into the dawn, and you won't even remember this for long when it ends. All right. I mentioned back in Hush, with their relationship starting at the same point in time, there's always been a connection between Tillo and Ruffy, an inverted reflection of each other. By the end of this episode, Willow and Tara are a partnership. Buffy and Riley are not, and the results speak for themselves. It's been a little bit since Spike's, insight, but his character makes a quantum leap in complexity here. By embracing his fantasies of Buffy, either consciously or compulsively, he has begun to act in a way that will raise some significant questions. Why did he help Buffy fend off the Leok demons? Was it strictly because if they'd killed her, he would never have had the opportunity to get into her pants? He may have said in the following scene that he didn't care what happened to Tara, but his actions were instrumental in getting to the root of Mr. Maclay's family lie. If Spike were pure evil, wouldn't it have been more enjoyable to just stand by and watch? Buffy was in no imminent threat at that point. Why would it matter to Spike what happens to Tara? Or again, was he motivated by a desire to show the Buffster that he is a stand-up undead? Did he take more joy out of torturing a parent than he would have torturing Tara? I don't have any answers at the moment. I just think it's important to take a close and careful look at Mr. the Bloody when considering his motivations, as occasionally it might be tempting to perceive Spike's actions as altruistic, and his charm and smolder have such a steadily disarming effect. Also, side note, isn't that a cross he's holding? How? Does the intent of the shape supersede its geometry when it comes to burning vampire hands? As I said in the opening, family mostly feels like another unique entry into Whedon's episodes, but the one it reminds me the most of is the underrated Amends. I've read reviews from people who were put off by the very special episode tone to that one.
Be of good cheer. It's Christmas.
From Angelus's holiday exploits to the choice Bangel speak at the climax to the magical snowstorm that saves the day, Amends may feel to some a little more drenched in romance than your average Buffy episode, a tonal shift. But to me, I think Amends is an experiment in form, similar to the Zeppo. Whedon doing Capra in It's a Wonderful Life, Angel, an experiment that asks us to calibrate our expectations from the beginning, and if we do so successfully, has a lot to offer. The very first opening shot of Family, a repetition of the whimsical bit of Willow's dream in Restless, gives away Whedon's desire to play with a particular form.
Tell me a story. Okay. Once upon a time.
A fairy tale bedtime story. Tara's Miss Kitty Fantastico story is allegorical for both her and Dawn, which we'll get to in a minute. But this episode is a fairy tale, complete with magic, an evil stepfamily because the Scoobies are Tara's real family, a knight, a princess who comes along to rescue the other princess, and maybe a little unusually for any Buffy episode, but also present in Amends, a happy ending. I think it also fits with the fable structure. Happily ever after. There are hints of the bedtime structure in the episode's composition as well. Mutant Enemy sometimes uses a writing technique where the last line of one scene serves as a transition into the next.
Soon it'll stop. Soon it'll scream.
Mwah. Doesn't make any sense.
Take her apart. I don't care how brilliant she is.
Stupid pen.
Usually allowing for a quick and easy joke. The result always feels a little bit meta.
What's that? A cauldron? Who uses a cauldron anymore?
One part of an episode being subconsciously aware of another. But I like it, and it happens a couple of times an episode. Whedon uses it many times in Family.
How do you think your friends are going to feel when they see your true face?
Including inside of particular scenes. Giles asks if he can help Tara's brother find something specific, and in comes Tara, the thing he was going to need help finding. Using this technique, as often as Whedon does in this one, gives Family a sing-songy, self-aware quality, where it feels like one scene rhymes with the next, a bit like a bedtime story. So if Family feels a little overflowing with romance and whimsy, that's because it is. That is the format Whedon decided to play with. Of particular thematic significance in this one are fathers, represented by Hank Summers, Mr. Maclay, and Giles. The episode opens with a rare reference to Buffy's father, Hank, when Giles makes the suggestion that maybe Dawn should be sent to L.A. to stay with him, away from Glory.
Your father's?
Yeah, he's, in Spain with his secretary. Living the cliche.
You're her real father, Giles. Among the three examples of fathers, Giles is the healthiest portrayal.
Well, I saw myself in more of a patriarchal sort of role, you know. Lots of pointing and scowling.
Unlike Hank Summers, he is present. Unlike Mr. Maclay, Giles doesn't try to control or dominate Buffy, but instead simply advises, works with her, and lets her make her own decisions. He doesn't tell Buffy what they should tell the others, but instead asks.
Do we tell the others?
He asks and defers to her judgment. It's not that Giles wouldn't speak his mind if it came to it, but he lets Buffy live her life and make her own decisions, even if the fate of the world is on the line, and when it comes to Buffy's decisions, it often is. And Buffy already made the distinction between blood and family that this episode is about when she tried to get Giles to marry her and Spike in Something Blue.
And my father's not that far away. I mean, he could... But this day's about family. My real family. And I would like you to be the one to give me away.
As for Hank Summers, I had a strange thought watching this one this time. As much as I won't forgive him for the way the nightmare version of him spoke to her, Buffy's dad was actually supportive in nightmares. He bought her shoes to compensate for their poor communication and when she was bad, which shows a desire to connect with her even through the wrong approach. And we can say at the very least, he apologized and sent her flowers for not making the ice capades on her birthday. Up until now, I would have described him as an adequately subpar dad? But fleeing to Spain with his secretary and ignoring Joyce's illness feels like a radical alteration to his part in the family story. Depending on when Hank and Joyce got divorced, he's about 5 years late on his midlife crisis. It made me wonder how things played out differently in the Summers home once Dawn was retconned into their lives. Lastly, we have Mr. Maclay. It's not an uncommon trend for representations of misogyny on the show to speak to women as though they were children. In Season 3, where Giles spoke to Buffy plainly but always allowed her to make her own decisions, the mayor treated Faith like a child and spoke to men in the room like Giles and Angel instead of to Buffy.
You never get even a little tired of hearing yourself speak, do you?
That's one spunky little girl you've raised.
Tara's father does the same to her. Everything he says feels fatherly, but is peppered with diminishing terms, like a father speaking to a 10-year-old.
The girl belongs with her family. I hope that's clear to the rest of you.
And of course, there is his controlling lie. Psychology Today defines the term gaslighting as a tactic in which a person or entity, in order to gain more power, makes a victim question their reality.
You have evil inside of you, and it will come out.
It doesn't feel evil, sir.
Evil never does.
It is a common technique of abusers, dictators, narcissists, and cult leaders. And Mr. Maclay shows signs of being all of those in this episode. Certainly it is abusive to convince his daughter that any aspect of her is demonic. His interactions with her are absolutely dictatorial. He isn't interested in her point of view. As a narcissist would, he makes Tara's private life be all about him. And he travels with an entourage like a cult leader. An entourage that includes enforcers willing to do the uncivilized dirty work on his behalf.
Tara, if you don't get in that car, I swear by God, I will beat you down.
The misogyny, which I define here as dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women, feels self-evident with Mr. Maclay, and maybe a little on the nose from Tara's brother Donnie, but it is uniquely depressing from Amy Adams's character, Cousin Beth, who has internalized the family misogyny and perpetuates it on Tara.
You selfish bitch. There's a house that needs taking care of. Donnie and your dad having to do for themselves while you're down here living God knows what kind of lifestyle.
As though the fact that Tara's dad and brother are sloppy, unwiped asshats who can't throw a Totino's in the oven and wash the plate afterwards is somehow Tara's irrevocable responsibility because she shares their blood. But Cousin Beth, preserving the family legacy of brainwashing that was probably done to her, feels ugly in a particularly unique way.
Are you happy now?
The weaponization of a victim. There is a philosophical component to this episode, call it the existentialist's approach to love and relationships. The idea that we are in some way fundamentally incomplete without someone is a tenet of romanticism, and it runs contrary to any existentialist viewpoint. It's a tired old romantic cliche that rears its head from time to time.
You complete me.
And Cousin Beth evokes it here with regard to blood relations. Tara and her family cannot be complete without each other. But from an existentialist point of view, the idea that we should ever be enslaved to and or incomplete without any one relationship, blood or otherwise, would be abhorrent, and it undermines the freedom necessary for us to express our fully authentic selves through our choices. Since magic has been used as a metaphor for love and intimacy between two women, the fact that Mr. Maclay and company attribute the source of Tara's magic to something demonic means that a major part of this episode is about the experience of being LGBTQ in a family that rejects you for being who you are. The show has played with allegory before.
I mean, have you tried not being a Slayer?
But this is the episode where the subtext rapidly becomes text. Two components to queer identity are chosen family, and the tension between authenticity and respectability. In general, Tara's family all express that Tara should feel shame for being who she is openly.
I suppose you wanted me to see all these toys,
he says, after handling Tara's curiously dildo-shaped toy. Ever a Joss joke, if ever there was. So, in metaphor, Mr. Maclay thought Tara would go to college and get being gay out of her system. Mary Beth accuses Tara of being tainted for resisting her father, and one ugly old stereotype was that being a strong, independent woman meant that woman was also probably a lesbian. Tara's mother was also magical, punished and controlled for it the way Tara has been. It's an indication that magic power might, at least in part, be hereditary, family, not something so simple as choice. In stark contrast to the Maclay's philosophy, and a little less metaphorical, we have Buffy and Xander's conversation in the magic box. They're both still feeling weird and a little awkward about Tillo, but desperately wanting to advance past their own awkwardness.
There's just that thing.
That thing.
At the moment, they think that being gay is Tara's defining characteristic, as they say it's the only thing they know about her.
But Tara, I just know she likes Willow.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
And I mean, yes, as a friend pointed out, gift-giving is also just difficult. But there is more going on in this conversation, which I read as two straight people grappling with the fear that sexuality creates an unknowable and uncrossable barrier in their inner circle.
Think there'll be a lot of Wiccas there? Heavy Wiccan crowd?
Not that there's anything wrong with that!
By the end of the episode, those concerns have clearly been put to rest. The trigger for that change is brought on by Tara's spell. In this episode, Tara makes a decision and tells Cousin Beth that she intends to stay in Sunnydale, which means that she thinks the outcome of her spell to blind Cadria will be that the rest of the Scoobies won't see the demon part that emerges from her, that she will still appear as human. But the spell has a number of accidental or just poorly considered consequences. Unless the blinding spell had a point where it would wear off, making the Slayer blind to demons seems a bit short-sighted. And I don't think it works the way Tara actually intended. Spike is only part demon, and when he pulls the demon Buffy can't see off of him, and she runs out of the room without an acknowledgement, his
You're welcome
is because Buffy can't see him, which means that Tara's spell, were she half demon, would have made her totally invisible to them. The metaphor then is that we can't actually be our authentic selves with other people when we're keeping part of who we are locked away.
I was trying to hide.
And the beautiful irony of the episode, of course, is that the moment when Tara lifts her spell is the moment where they get to really see her in all her vulnerability, both the lie that she was afraid of and who she is for all of them. Of course, the impulsive use of magic as a coping mechanism is a trap that Willow has fallen into repeatedly over the seasons, most recently in Something Blue, where it was obvious Willow felt guilty. Yes, she made shame cookies, and the experience is partly what gives her the compassion necessary to be so understanding to Tara in this moment.
She just did a spell that went wrong. It was just a mistake.
But guilt is not the same thing as learning a lesson, and it will be interesting to see where Tara and Willow, whom Whedon portrayed as yin and yang in Restless, will go, having shared the same experience. But the one persistent question throughout the episode might be, what is family? How do we measure it, understand it, qualify it? Is it the math of blood or something signaled in communication? Mr. Maclay uses the word love with Tara early on.
Your family loves you, Tara.
Yet we feel instinctively that his love, if real, is conditional on Tara's willingness to bend to his will. Not a single Scooby uses the word for each other until the final scene in the episode, but the unspoken love and connection between them in their first opening scene feels more real and meaningful than anything Tara's relatives have to say in the entire episode. Is it just about memory then? Real Me sets up a connection between Tara and Dawn, with both of them feeling like outsiders to the group, and their parallels carry into this episode. The monks created Buffy's memories for Dawn through magic, and at the end of Family, Willow uses a particular word to explain Tara and Willow's feelings for each other.
Magic.
Dawn is not really Buffy's family. In fact, there is a more direct relation of Dawn's that is currently trying to capture and take her home.
Tell me where the key is.
Now I'm taking you out of here before somebody does get killed.
Tara's father's gaslighting, creating a truth that isn't there, and Buffy struggling with what the memories the monks gave her of Dawn mean, are fascinating counterpoints.
I remember Dawn cried for a week. Except she didn't. She wasn't there.
And the question of what intrinsic meaning memory and shared experience have is repeated again when Buffy and Xander fumble awkwardly in conversation to talk about what to buy Tara.
I mean, I don't really know her that well.
Something I've regularly wondered at throughout the series is, where are the Sunnydale parents? I think with the appearance of Mr. Maclay, this episode offers an answer. who cares? It isn't blood that makes any relationship meaningful or worthwhile. Philosophically, it can't by itself, as we don't get to choose our relatives, and meaning arises from our freedom to do so. And as I've said before, we don't always get to choose who we love, and because of that, our love for another can never make us captive to their abuses. To some degree, this season is about the virtue of self-sacrifice, but sacrifice that isn't given freely is servitude. So I think, at the end of it, and as always, what we're talking about is choice and freedom, as that is the only access to our authenticity, as in choosing to surround ourselves with the people who use their freedom to celebrate and encourage us to embrace our own. We may not get to choose who we're related to or who we love, but we can always choose our family.